active committees.
Your question answered? Any more questions?
Could a question be a lot like a statement? I'd like to make a statement. Okay. I'm going back to work in a couple minutes. I raised my kids in Siskiyou County and I moved to Shasta County. I was there 3 days and my new boss said, you know, there's a smoking ordinance, public smoking ordinance in Shasta County. You sound like the guy you might want to be involved in that. And I was. We went right up to the wire the night before the election, which was a huge election, urban area, rural area, that was the major difference. I said, if this isn't passed, I'm going to be ashamed to be a Shasta County resident. Most restrictive in the country at the time. It passed 70 to 30. I feel a little bit about that, about this thing. I'd be very disappointed that we don't take an opportunity to move forward without making any commitment. I love Lassen County. I've been here for 16 years. And I really think it's time. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple more questions.
Yeah, I've got a question to the board. If I could refer my question to you now or when this gentleman's finished.
Whatever you want.
Oh, I'll address it to the chair. My question is that you gentlemen sitting up there represent supervisors of all the area. If you don't agree with this, that means to say it doesn't go ahead. Am I wrong or right?
If I understand you asking if we agree with it, we'll move ahead.
Okay, then if that's the case, if everybody here has put you in the chair, as you positioned you are, you're representing us as people. So do I take it that if it's a no-go, you're speaking on behalf of everybody in the area, as in Lassen County?
We represent the entire county of Lassen, 28,000 people. Each one of us have a District 1 through 5, that has within 3% of the same amount of population. So we have to make our decision on what we feel those people want. Not just on 100 people in this room.
No, that's what I'm talking about. You speak on behalf of each district.
We speak on behalf of I speak on behalf of all my constituents.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ron, just a quick question. If y'all decided you didn't want to do it, what would it take for us to put it on the ballot to let Lassen County know?
I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, we would take a petition with a certain amount of signatures, which you get from the county clerk, and you can put it on the ballot. If we did not agree to do that, the people can do it through a petition.
May I add to that, sir? There are a couple of ways. The board can place it on the next ballot, next regular election, or people can gather petitions to have it placed on a ballot themselves, or we can have a signature drive, because once again, Article 4, Section 3 doesn't have any rules. It just says, nor shall any state, unless the state legislature agrees. And what we're doing in one county, that the board voted not to even listen to the presentation, we're in the middle of a signature drive right now to just get ordinary people's signatures, and if we get 51%, we're going to staple it to a declaration and take it to Sacramento. So Article 4 is beautiful. It's designed for and by the people.
Okay. We're in the back. Got a question?
Mark, if I might, Ross Jones. If I understand correctly, should the Board of Supervisors choose to form a declaration, it only reserves their position at the table. Is that correct?
It by standing, when the challenge to the representative model of California occurs, and it's already going to occur. We already have enough counties for that. We want to give everybody a seat at the table that wants one. That's correct. The declaration legally does absolutely nothing except gives an affirmation of local support to go forward with the state split process. That's all it does. Now, it also creates standing if we sue the state of California for lack of representation or dilution of vote. And we are going to do one of those two things. The only question we're asking is which counties want a seat at the table when that's discussed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any more questions? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Discussion.
So it costs this county zero to do this.
Zero.
All right.
Causes no action. Now, let's say we go forward, let's just project out. Let's say in the perfect world, everything happens the way we hope and pray it will. And we do achieve state split. At that point, committees of separation are formed by Congress and by the state legislature. And they discuss debt apportionment, asset apportionment, who owns the Caltrans bulldozer parked in the county yard here, so on and so forth. And then we have a state's constitutional convention. And the way we imagine that going, of course, you'll have a seat at that table as well. There will be one representative from each county appointed or elected by you directly, at least one representative elected by the people of this county, and then the 10 largest cities in Jefferson will have one extra representative reflective of their larger population, so that cities are represented, rural areas are represented, boards are represented, and people are represented. And at that point, we make a state constitution. And away we go.
I have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
I know back in the time, years ago, he was talking about Eastern Oregon, Southern Oregon also joining this. Is that still part of the state of Jefferson movement?
It could be. The reason I want to qualify that is Article 4, Section 3 is clear. We are, as Californians, have the legal authority, ability, and jurisdiction to petition our legislature for state split. We do not have the authority or jurisdiction to petition theirs. So if Oregon wants to join us, and believe me, we welcome that. We talk to people up there all the time. Then they have to go through the Article 4 process the same as we are. Now, the beauty of Article 4 is they can join later. I mean, if we form our own state and several counties in Southern Oregon still want in, of course, as the state of Jefferson, we want more area and more population and more opportunity. We welcome them in. And so they can join now or they can go later. We are talking to them, but the problem is they have to form committees because they have to do this themselves. I'm not here on their behalf. I'm here at the request of the Lassen County Jefferson Committee. I'm here to help your committee in your county to help you understand why we want to do this and why it would be a good thing for us to do this. So it has to be up to the people in each county. It can't be someone from hundreds of miles away telling them what to do. And right now there's a lot of talk in Oregon, but not many committees. We still have hope, and they can still join, but so far they haven't.
And then to further on with that Dean's question she had, so if it were to pass and California gets split, Oregon split too, and both states become part of the state of Jefferson, the California people will live under the California laws, the Oregon people will live under the Oregon laws.
We
the state of Jefferson got their stuff.
Well, you have committees of separation. And in those committees of separation, in other words, there has to be a point where you say, okay, we're finished with the old and we're starting the new. There has to be a transition period. That's just the physical law of the universe. You've got to change from one thing to another. The committees of separation would impart the processes through which those changes would be made. And that's up to Congress, the legislature of California, and the representatives selected by the state of Jefferson to oversee that process. So I'm sure there would be a transition period, but I don't know. I try to research the history of Massachusetts and West Virginia, Vermont, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and some of those documents are pretty hard to access, but I don't think that's as big a deal as we think it is. I think it's certainly, we have plenty of talent in this room alone, and we certainly have plenty of talent in the state of Jefferson and the state of California to engineer an orderly process through which this takes place.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess our next moving the process would be for the board to give direction to staff to what we want to do with this. We want to move ahead, put it on the agenda. Jim, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I got some.
Okay.
First of all, I know Mr. Barrett spent 45 minutes and everybody's kind of getting tired talking. I appreciate all the effort and time you put into this. So I'm going to try to keep mine relatively short, and I know that freaks out people when I say that. Trying to distill the information into kind of a short, encapsulate thing, because it's kind of hard to put your hands around, I think, this issue in a big way. I've been studying and dealing with this. This has been one of my passions for close to 40 years now. I've got a lot of material that I've accumulated. This is only a small part of it. So this is not a new topic to me. And so I obviously...
I'd love to read some of the stuff you have.
Well, I gave you my card last September and told you anytime you had a pre-moment, let me know, because I have a lot of stuff I'd be happy to share with you. And it could probably help your presentation, because I know you say, in terms of somebody challenged you on errors, in your presentation there were numerous factual errors and also some historical inaccuracies, which are minor, but nonetheless, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to do it right, and we have to make sure we have our facts right, and I'm more than happy to help you kind of hone that. I have all your notes I took from your presentation you did last September at the Vets Hall. I know 2 other board members were there listening to it. I really enjoy watching the YouTube videos of your presentations around the North State in terms of the other counties, and it varies from county to county, and it's kind of hard to give the same speech, the same time, the same way every time, and so there are obviously some variations there too. From it all, I would have to start by saying that it's very obvious you're a student of history, and I think also a student of the Civil War, and both of those are passions of mine as well, so we share that. But I would like to have from you, if you could, give me some examples of peaceful breakups of political jurisdictions, not only recently, but in history.
Well, Maine from Massachusetts.
Okay, that's 150 years ago.
Right. That was the last time the Article 4 said.
I think when you look at history as as a whole, rarely do you see a political jurisdiction that has a dominant control and been willing to let my people go free, as they say in some of the context, in terms of the minorities that would like to, break out and fend for themselves and be out from under the dominance of the majorities. And it cuts across all kinds of demographics. So it's not, you can't say it's one aspect or another. In our particular case, it's the suffocation of the bureaucracy and the over-regulation and the over-burdensome.
And the lack of empathy for what it takes.
The lack of empathy, and more importantly, the lack of representation. And I think some of that drove, I was actively involved with Stan Statham back in 1991 and 92. In fact, it was my memo to the board to get the board to vote no on the budget, county budget back in September of 1991 that kind of launched his whole effort, because when he grabbed a hold of our little treaties that we wrote about, and the thing is you listen to the spouting of all the little historical phrases and stuff like that. I just kind of like roll my eyes, because all that's in that document. I'd be happy to give you a copy for your historical satisfaction later on.
See, there is nothing new under the sun.
No, there isn't. And I have to tell you, one of the things that you have to say, everything you said today, at one point or another, has been already pursued. We've had over 220 efforts in California alone to split up California, and that doesn't count the rest of the country. This book here, I just stumbled on it by accident because of the press that you guys have done the last couple of years. It led to a number of articles where I discovered this book, and it was written in 2010 by some guy in New York who studied the splitting of probably 20 states throughout the country. And of course, I was really intrigued to read in there about what he had to say about the Statham effort, because I was hoping there would be something in there. And sure enough, not only was in there, but I found myself being quoted from the New York Times in an article that I supposedly had made an interview. I don't remember the interview, but I thought it was pretty interesting, because this kind of fits into what we're facing in terms of dealing with this people. And I'm quoted as saying, the urbanites think we're chainsaw fanatics, but restoration of the forest has happened because we do it. Not some guy sitting in a swivel chair in Santa Monica. And the guy goes, good shot, Chapman. Yet the guys in the swivel chairs call the shots, as Statham's representing 9 counties, while the county of Los Angeles has 26 legislators. So, I mean, that pretty much, is what you've been talking about. And that's what we're talking about, is how do we, break ourselves free. But I think what we have to understand is that only rarely do we see a minority group break free. Now, there's numerous examples of those who take up arms. The minority just gets so fed up that they take up arms, and we have, whether it's a civil war, I mean, what's going on in Ukraine today, what's going on, I mean, around the world, almost.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, I know. What I'm just saying, though, is that what we have to recognize is there are a lot of people out there on the street right now who are freaked out at the idea that this is what maybe this could lead to. And I think we need to understand that, because that fear or that either lack of commitment, and some people say, oh yeah, give us liberty or give us death, Patrick Henry's our guy, they're going to espouse that. But there are realities to that and consequences to that thinking, and I think we have to understand how that, it whips us all into a frenzy to go do it. But the people behind us are wondering, are those folks crazy? And is it really worth all that? And is the grievances that bad that we've come to that point? And to be honest with you, some of the rhetoric that I've observed over the last several months gives me great concern. And you have to deal with that. You have to deal with that, because if you don't, it will destroy and defeat the very effort you're trying to do. So I think that's something that needs to be said. Your financial analysis, and I appreciate the fact, and I realize that the Plymouth guys didn't get it, and it went to them and the staff or somebody, whatever happened, and then you guys learned the lesson. I know Kerry Raposo in his email said, we learned from then on, anywhere you go, you're going to certify mail everybody supposed to have this so that we have
And also, that model's on the computer, so you can change the tax rates.
Yeah, I realize that. So anyway, but the information was nice to get this last week, and this is something that we've been waiting to see, and I want to understand and appreciate the financial. To be honest with you, it's a little confusing to be able to discern. I see our county auditor is here, and it'd be nice if maybe she could take a moment and digest it in terms of understanding the numbers.
Would it be helpful if I had the guy that authored that model call the county administrator and discuss it?
Yeah, we know them, but I'd like to even talk to that person.
Yeah, oh, sure. I'd be happy.
One of the things on here that I really didn't understand, and it's something, I understand property tax, and how much is generated in property tax by the counties, how much state income tax is generated. Those numbers are all available off the appropriate government websites, and most of them are published out of Sacramento anyway. But here's one that I really kind of scratched my head about. It says federal tax return.
Okay, that
So
I was,
can you explain?
yes, I was
what
just
that,
in a conference call with the chairman of the board of Placer County and Steve, who authored the report. And the chairman asked that same question. Those are dollars, let's assume that California gives $1 to the federal government. 88 cents of that dollar are returned to the state. That's what that number refers to. Now, some states give $1 to the federal government, like Mississippi, and they get $1.28 back. Some states, like California, give $1 and they get 88 cents back in programs, money, so on and so forth. That's what that number represents.
This is not money that Lassen County gets directly. This is money that maybe the state of California accepts on behalf of everybody, and as a result,
and is divided up among the counties in order
But
to
your
do things. For
proposal-
example, Caltrans is paid for largely with federal dollars, so that would come out of that money.
well, your proposal is that this $113,893,807 would actually come directly back to each of the individual counties. I mean, this would be our share. Other counties vary upwards to $2.4 billion, and I guess that would be
Yes, that's true, because we propose a state government that does what government should do. Act as an arbiter between counties, act as a liaison, but otherwise you spend money here because you're the ones that have the roads to fix.
Well, the Assembly Office of Research, which did a similar kind of study of the Statham proposal, and I was just looking at that document last night, I located it in the binders. It made it real clear that there's, when it comes to the money flow back and forth, I mean, it's true, that's why Camilla Harris can say what she says about the 6-8 proposal from that character from Santa Clara that wants to break up California that way, is that in reality, the monies are there if it's improperly allocated. The problem you're going to have to deal with, and it's real, and I don't trust any of them, is that when you take and start dividing everything up, I mean, you do it in a very simplistic fashion, and this works for me, but I guarantee you, having dealt with the state of California for close to 40 years when it comes to city and county and even college budgets and stuff, They operate with the philosophy that what's theirs is theirs and what's yours is theirs. Okay? And I guarantee you, you will be lucky if you get the $807 out of this deal with the other $113 million going somewhere else. And that is something that this, it projects it, it shows it as being a possibility. In terms of reality, my experience is that we rarely see any of these kind of numbers come back to us 100% intact.
Would you allow this then? This is an ongoing process, first of all.
Sure.
Second of all, a lot of assumptions have to be made because we don't, in fact, know the end game of how many counties are going to join us. So we have a set of preliminary assumptions that definitely need more fleshing out, and as we know how many counties are going to join us, that will give us the ability in hard financial numbers to flesh those details out.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I think it's going to be ever moving. It's kind of like quicksand. It's going to be moving around, and you're just going to have to hope that it moves favorably in your direction in the end. And that's, I guess, we can all aspire to that. And hope is still one value and virtue we still possess. One of the other things that I find, really troublesome, and that's kind of addressed to these people with the shirts. Okay, and that's the motto of Jefferson State is less taxes, less regulations, and less government. And I think all of those appeal to all of us. In fact, I think in the two California book, this is a 1980s version that recapped everything from 1850 up until Barry King in the early 80s was proposing pretty much the same thing you're talking about, using Article 4, Section 3, the whole works. It's all the arguments are outlined in there. Basically talk about, we have just a lot of cultural differences. We have a lot of, just across the board, all kinds of differences, financial differences with the different parts of the state. We have a very heavy reliance. It's one thing to say, oh yeah, your kid can go to the University of California if they decide to go through reciprocal agreements. We do that now. We get kids from Nevada come over here to Lassen College, and our kids here go over.
No, they don't.
We used to do that for a long time. And so even with neighboring states, we've had those kind of reciprocal agreements. So that's something that can be worked out. But then again, at any given time, if one side or the other decides, hey, wait a minute, we don't like that, they can cut it off. So it's not an ironclad.
Yeah, that's true of anything, though.
So, but my concern is that we have a tremendous reliance upon government employment and government activity. Our economy here in Lassen County is built with that in a huge way. Now, we're talking about watching that be diversified. That was what the last discussion was about. It's going to take us some time. It may take us 3 to 5 years with one proposal. We start seeing some things happen. It probably give us some other opportunities. So the transition between where we are today to what may be that future economy, especially one that allows us to use our natural resources, because that's part of the regulatory things that we'd like to unshackle, from doing this here. It's going to be a rough patch. It's going to be difficult. And, I know at the event hall you made the statement, and I was kind of almost fell out of my chair when you were telling the prison guards, well, the state of California is really, lowballing us when it comes to paying out there for the prisons. So if we take this over in Jefferson State, we have the 2 prisons here. There's one over at Pelican Bay in Delaware County, and they obviously need bed space. And because the amount of prisoners that we would generate out of Jefferson State, that 3%, is only going to fill up maybe one small section out there. So the rest of them are going to have to come from imported whatever. That's assuming they're going to give us the inmates. And he even suggested that we're going to make sure they pay us full rate for it, and with that money we'll have plenty enough money, maybe even give you a raise. And I'm thinking to myself,
that's my hope.
Huh?
That's my hope.
Well, it's a great thing to hope, but I can tell you right now, the reality will slap you in the face. It will slap you in the face. We ran for 20 years a return to custody facility through our jail where we were housing state inmates, and they kind of sweetened the pot. So the first couple, 2 to 3 years, we did fine. We basically wanted to keep that contract so we could pay off the indebtedness that we incurred to build it, to operate it. But I have to tell you, the last 3 years that we operated it, we were lucky if we were getting 70 cents on the dollar. And they probably did us a favor because they kept sending us people so we could pay off the debt in the 20 years. But as soon as that was done, they canceled the contract, and we have basically a mothball facility there right now. I guarantee you, the state of California will never pay you a full bore on anything. That's,
I'd certainly like to talk to you about that and get those numbers down into a more
well,
concrete
the person I
fashion.
had to talk to, like John Minow and Dean Cowden, because they were the ones that managed those contracts, and I tell you, the Board of Supervisors in the county budget, the last 2 years, we had to subsidize part of that operation. But we were glad to do that because we did make a couple dollars on the front end, and we actually have a building that's ours, that's paid for. And the idea being, when Ron Gerald proposed it, that someday the county's going to grow and we're going to need that additional jail space. So we already have our next jail basically built, at least the walls and the roof, and the inside is going to have to be redone. But, you know, we're a lot better off than a lot of counties are. They're struggling to figure out how they're going to take care of those particular needs. So in the long run, I think it's been a good thing for the county, but it wasn't done with any really great help from the state of
Well,
California.
perhaps with some expertise and if you guys really know what they're talking about.
Well, and I know that the feedback I've gotten, not the people in the room here, I appreciate their passion, but I've gotten a lot of feedback from folks who work in those environments and have made it real clear. They're feeling they're getting shortchanged by the state of California, and they don't have any confidence about being taken care of in the state of Jefferson.
I can't predict the future, but what I can tell you as a peace officer myself, I don't want any part of taking anybody's paycheck or anybody's retirement, and I won't have anything to do with that if I have anything to say about it. And that's all I can say, because I don't know in the end what the state's constitutional convention is going to be. But I guarantee you that if we're not immoral people throughout this process, it's all for naught anyway.
The next question I had, Aaron actually asked, and I think that thing that you're asking is dealing with the Oregon counties, because the Jefferson State historical model dates back to 1941, which you can read about in this book, and actually read about 2 or 3 of them here. You know, to me, I was really enamored with that, you know, way back when, in fact, in 1991, we actually had a ballot measure on the ballot. We produced our own set of kind of campaign buttons, and we have Jefferson State by 98. So we actually,
That's pretty cool.
we actually promoted that. Lassen County voted on June 5th, 1992, 4,379 yes votes, or 58%, to 3,045 no votes. So it wasn't a big overwhelming amount, but it was definitely a majority. Now, the measure that was stated in this proposal of Northern California actually received 5,799 votes, which was a good 1,500 votes more than the Jefferson State one. It had 76%, and that was part of that county one. So the Jefferson State idea, like looking with Oregon and doing that, had some value. Now, the Nevada proposal, annexing to Nevada as an option, was basically voted down 40 to 60% on the basis. At that time, they were stealing. They were stealing our water. We didn't like it. We were fighting with them over water. But the voters have already expressed themselves, I think, on the issue. But I think, given the time that has passed, obviously, if we're going to really assess the public's concerns today, especially with the change in the fact that we've expanded the prisons and we've expanded our economy based on the involvement of California. I think the vote of 92 is a good indication, but I think it's one that would still deserve a kind of a revote. Now, the last area of question I'd like to just ask about, or just concerned about, you talk about the sovereignty, and you really kind of talk about, we understand the sovereignty of the federal government, and that's our ability to go around the world and beat up people we don't like, and they beat us up. And then, the sovereignty of the feds are based upon the various 13 colonies to start with in terms of being a defined entity. So they could each been like an independent country, like we see over in Europe. And it was the United States of America, which 13 states pooled their sovereign authority to the national stuff. And you did a pretty good job of outlining that in terms of the constitutional arguments, I thought. But the sovereignty level lies at the state and federal. Counties, there's over 5,000 counties in the United States. There's 58 in California. Counties by nature are not considered to be sovereign entities. Right. And we're actually...
We propose to make each county a legal subdivision of the state. That was the point I was trying to make to this lady.
Well, there's a big difference being a legal subdivision of the state versus being sovereign. And we are already, as a county, the 58 counties in California, are subdivisions of the state. We're created by an act of the legislature. Now, when I first became a supervisor back in the 70s, the counties were dealing hot and heavy out of the 60s, 70s, probably even into the early 80s. There was a lot of movement at the state level to kind of get rid of counties because they considered counties to be sort of, kind of outmoded, outdated.
At odds with their agenda.
Well, it was, and their agenda is very real, and they've got the votes. And so what they were even actually proposing was abolishing counties, kind of going to a regional form of government where we would kind of pool together. There would be about 10 regions.
That's how Joe Stalin did it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But that was the debate that was going on there, and the counties were successful in pushing that back. We retained the respect for us. But the bottom line is that all the legislature has to do to say to these counties that sign all the declarations, well, if you guys are that unsatisfied with your lot in life, we could fix that real simple, and the majority vote of either of both houses of the legislature, and poof, the counties exist, and they could go to that. And I'm concerned because I know the history, when you read the history of the political history in California, that's underlying a lot of that, and so we have to be careful that if they decide to respond in that fashion. But more importantly, the declaration, the way it's worded, and I'm not comfortable with it at all.
You guys are free to change that to whatever you want to
because
say.
throughout the thing you make reference to the people of Lassen, like as though we are so sovereign. And if we were that sovereign, I'd say heck with forming a new state. I'd say heck with being a part necessarily of the United States of America. I mean, one of the proposals we had when we were doing this is there's nothing that precludes this from being annexed or so and say Hawaii. They're not connected, so why can't we be a Hawaiian island? Just be happen to be on the neighbor. So there's an infinite variety of ideas, but one of them maybe is if we're indeed sovereign, then we ought to maybe consider that. And there again, once you start talking to those things, it gets people, especially with the weapons, all mixed up. But I think within the declaration, the references that we are the people of Lassen, so we're this independent sovereign entity, I think needs to be revised to reflect what our true role is. Basically, we're subservient to and we're subject to. The whole purpose of county government is we're there to do the bidding of the state. We're there for their convenience and for their use. Now, I realize we don't like to hear that. We don't like to be in that way, and we do everything we can to fight against that perception. We're here doing it because we want to take care of the people that live within our jurisdiction. That's what the role of local government is really all about. And so anyway, with that, I just want, yes, I understand, Mr. Chairman. He had 45 minutes. We had a lot of questions, and I'm just barely scratching the surface of things. But I have to say that based on the numerous factual errors and the historical inaccuracies in some case, I think we need to tread lightly in terms of how we respond to this here. I'm in favor of letting the public have another vote on it if necessary to validate their position. Anything we can do to redefine that relationship with the state that's healthier for us. Anything we can do to improve the representation that we would have in terms of the numbers. If Wyoming was able to get a case through the Supreme Court that allowed them to tweak that, if our urban partners, without bloodshed or violence, is willing to yield and give us that standing and that right relationship, then I think anything we can do to accomplish that, I'm all for it. But anything short of that, I would be concerned.
Thank you, Jim. I think the direction of the board to the staff would be to put this on a future agenda to review the declaration and make a decision on what we want to do at that point. Is that good? Okay, that would be the direction of the board. And in the future agenda, let's say 2 weeks. And then we can review the declaration and change it how we want it. Put it on the ballot. Vote the people or whatever. Any more discussion from the public before we adjourn the meeting?
One last item, sir. I was passed a note by someone who works at the prison that the state is transferring prisoners out of state and paying top dollar to Arizona and Oklahoma for those prisoners.
That's correct, to my knowledge.
Okay. Yep. So there is an opportunity, if we're an out-of-state prison, to gather prisoners either from California or from other states, in fact.
Okay. I think I see one hand back there.
Alex Salisbury, I hope you let us people vote on it. Not like we already turned down the swimming pool 2 times, and you guys are going on with it. when we get done, then we can get the boat and swim the pool again?
I'm not sure when we'll agree with this, but yes, I think people should vote to see if they want to move ahead of Lassen County go on to the city sheriff.
Yes, CCC is releasing 1,100 prisoners.
Prop 41.
Yeah, with Prop 47 that the state of California passed. Well, what happens if the state of California decides to put those prisoners in high desert, which will be fully staffed? What happens to those COs and the people that work in the offices there? What happens if they have to move out of the area to go to California prisons and their houses are vacant? What happens to your county then? Something to keep in mind. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
I appreciate the comment. Turn back, Commander Brown.
My name is Brian Mostaboy, and I want to know if you are going to get this on some type of ballot before January 30th, 2016.
I would assume if you go that direction,
Thank
it would be for November election.
Okay.
Isn't it?
That's exactly, because he has a timeline on when he needs to submit.
Well, yes, it would be on a general election or a primary.
If I could address that quickly, there's no general election in 2015, so a ballot measure would most likely require the calling of a special election, which could be done on certain specified dates between now and 2000.
Would you have the money for that?
Would the county have the money to do that?
I don't want to keep dragging and, oh, we missed it.
Well, the county would have enough money to conduct an election. The county budget process is all about prioritizing what the county does with that money. But I don't see the financing as being a significant barrier to having an election.
Okay, this is going to real fast. We've got several hands up.
Without the prisons, without the county and the state giving you your health and human services money, which basically is the main part of your budget, you know what the next tax base is?
I have no idea.
The ranchers, they just reported $123 million. I mean, the tax base would be the ranchers. You'd be having to pay the taxes. Just visualize that just for a second. That would be Lassen County's tax base.
Last time I checked it, I don't recall the county getting a tax payment from the state of California. Maybe that's something new since I left that position.
Jim.
Yeah. Mr. Chapman, I appreciate your comments today. I think it's very important that we hear both sides of the story. And it's very easy to emotionally get excited about this idea because we all hate all of the rules and regulations that we get out of California. There's no two ways about it. We're all very upset about that, and we know that we're not well represented. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't proceed with this. What I am saying is that we need to study both sides of it. And Mr. Chapman's comments about fighting with California, you know they can out-lawyer us. Those are real things, and that we have to be cognizant. All company executive. And I'd be delighted to have ranchers pay all the taxes in the county.
Ladies and gentlemen, equal representation and taxation. Anyhow, any more questions before we adjourn? Sir?
I just want to say for myself, I was born and raised in Southern California, and I'm not too proud of how I voted through the years. And I'm not sure if I want to let the people just vote on anything that they don't know anything about. We elected you people. You people know what's going on. I take your judgment.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. There may be people that take fear. I won't mention any names. So there you can put it back.
Yes, absolutely.
It was there before and it could come back. Also, the idea that I got from Jim Chapman is that we will be punished from California for trying to separate into new states. And my answer to that is, what's happening now is the same thing. We're being punished.
May I say something about that? When I spoke to the Trinity Board,
Wait a minute, let it finish.
I'm sorry.
We are being punished now with umpteen rules and regulations and tax on the amount of miles we drive. It is, punishment is always in this, and that's not
Also, when I spoke to the Trinity Board, they asked me, were we aware of any county that had directly affirmed the declaration that was later denied any grant money and so on and so forth? My answer to that was unequivocally no. And I said, and we're paying very close attention to that. For example, Siskiyou County was the first to affirm a declaration, and we just got a $26 million grant for a new jail in Siskiyou County. So the answer to that is no. No one is being punished for asking for more representation. And if they were to ask, can you imagine better evidence in our court case for lack of representation than a county being punished for asking for adequate representation and win our case for us?
Thank you. If that concludes the question, I see none, the board will be rediscussing this in 2 weeks. That'd be the 24th. It'll be back on the agenda for us to decide what we want to do. If you want to pass a declaration, if it's on the ballot, vote, or whatever. So.
I want to thank Mr. Beard for these.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank you for your questions. I'd like to thank you, sir, for your history. And this is one of the best places in California, and I hope I live to see it be part of the state of Jefferson. Thank you.